Good afternoon. It's been ages since we've done one of these, hasn't it? Now it's looks like spring has sprung, so welcome to today's edition of the world's dirtiest cross tourer. I'll give you a walk around in just a few seconds. So the title of this video is I'm trying to get rid of my cross tourer and I can't, and that seems like a really weird title. I've had this for 3 years now. In fact, I'm into my sort of halfway through the third year, if you want to see what I'm saying. And this is on a 4-year PCP deal, and I'm in the luxurious position where finance is no longer the limiting issue as to why I've got what I've got, like it was when I got this. And effectively my choices could be, within reason, a brand new GS. The Triumph Explorer 1200 is on a really good deal at the moment, or something left field like an S1000RR or even the M1000. I've had a very serious think about one of those, the M1000R and the M1000RR. And it's been a really difficult few months while I think about what I want to do, and the bigger part of that question is why I want to do what I think I want to do. Ideally I'd want to keep hold of this, and to keep it I have to spend about 4,200 I think it is at the end of the PCP deal, which isn't too bad actually. I could settle the finance a little bit early and save a bit of interest, but it just closes a few options down. And what you're seeing at the moment on the market is lots of these final edition cross tourers appearing. And the reason for that is these were on the very deal that I got, which is, you know, very low finance, some extras thrown in, a reasonable amount of wiggle room there, and they were trying to get rid of it, that they being Honda, were trying to get rid of the last few before it tripped up under the Euro reg. So what you're seeing at the moment is lots and lots of cross tourers on the market. Most have got more miles than this one. This one's got 13,800 and something now. And they're trading for around about high sixes. The really good ones like this one around about 7,000. So there we go, apologies for that slight interruption there due to the wind. As I was saying, so these are trading around about high sixes for a really good one, about 7,000 for a really exceptional one. Probably where this one realistically sits, high sevens, just under £8,000 on the market at the moment. So when I come to trade this in, if I trade it in, I'm expecting a good £2,500 profit, which is quite good. It certainly opens a few doors, or I might just keep it. So over the 3.5-ish years that I've had this, let's start on what I've done to it. So the front end, it's on its second front tyre, which is now a Bridgestone A41F, I believe it is, which is about as close as you're realistically going to get to a full road tyre on a big adventure bike. It certainly enables you to push the cross tourer as hard as it's prepared to be pushed, and I haven't taken it off-road anything other than very light gravel lanes like this, so I wouldn't have thought it's got too much ability off-road. It's certainly much quieter than your more off-road focused tyres, which is the advantage in the real world, and it seems quite crazy, but it's actually saved a little bit of fuel. I can get about 180, 185 now to a full tank before the light comes on. It's also on its second set of front brake pads. Not sure which pads Honda put in there. I'm hoping they're standard Honda ones. They're ones with the black packet with the actual Honda logo on. They tend to be a good balance between power, usability, all-round weatherability and cost, to be honest with you. I don't think they are Honda ones. I must just check on that in the actual service paperwork, but they did come from a Honda dealer, so I'm hoping they're Honda pads. The front forks actually is quite an interesting bit behind that. I've been playing with those the last few weeks because I've been test riding so many things. The front forks on this have started to become a little bit less satisfying, I suppose is the best way to describe it, and I've been playing around with them, seeing if I can get a better setting than what I've had the last couple of years. And what I've done is gone back to the original handbook settings, but I've gone back to the suspension settings for the DCT rather than the manual version. I'm only assuming that Honda recommend that because there's a slight difference in weight. but to be honest with you, it's a pretty fair compromise, so I think I might stick with those for a while and see what I think. This one hasn't got compression adjusters like a lot of upside down forks has, but rebound does a bit of both. Majority rebound side, some compression side, which is why a lot of lower end upside down forks particularly have a preload adjuster and a rebound adjuster only rather than compression. So compression you would tend to use after you've done your rebound anyway, so the rebound adjuster does a bit of both. One thing I've just started to notice on this as well, now we're heading towards 14,000 miles, is the head races, no pun intended. It's not a knock, that's not true, but when you have the bike stationary, apply the front brake and rock the suspension, there's just a tiniest little pink there where the bearings are taking some weight up. You can't feel it and the adjustment's absolutely perfect according to Honda, but just a very slight sort of pink on there. So okay, welcome back again, sorry about that. I'll say the suspension, just that very slight little knock on there. I could probably adjust it out, but to be honest I really can't be bothered, and you can't feel it yet and there's no real need, so I'll just keep my eye on that over the next few months. Normally the way I'd do it is pop the whole top yoke off and then do it using a proper castellated sort of socket rather than C-spanners. I'm not massively comfortable with C-spanners because when they slip, and sometimes they do, they knock the tank and scratch it, even if you put rags and things over it. So what I tend to do is just take the top yoke off and adjust it that way. Not a big job, but it's not really worth doing just yet. In terms of the engine, well, it's still as good today as it ever was. In fact, I think it's probably a little bit better. Even riding stuff, 1250 GS's, the Triumph Explorer, which I've ridden, the S1000 XR, which I've now ridden. The engine on this still feels absolutely fantastic, and myself and Mrs. Head Race went out the other day, and she's on the luxury side of the weight scale, should we put it that way, so it's probably carrying about 160, 170 kilos between us. Bear in mind we were fully loaded up with all our riding gear and everything, and the engine seemed largely unaffected, and that I think still, even after 3.5 years and riding all the modern stuff, the engine on this still stands out as the most incredible feature of the bike. And I haven't ridden the 1300 GS extensively yet. I've sat on one and had a bounce around on it. The power figures are, again, not fully reflective of the bike, so I'm not even considering a 1300 GS because I couldn't open the garage door to it. I'm really not interested in it at all. The 1400 we'll see. The engine on this though, it's still fantastic, and I have ridden the Africa Twin, both Adventure Sports, standard DCT, the standard Africa Twin. I've ridden the 23 model, the 20 model. I'm afraid twin cylinder bikes just aren't for me. I get the advantage. On the road they're as good as you'd ever need, but I just don't like twin cylinder bikes for my personal preference really. So the Africa Twin at the moment is off the radar. The NT1100, it's Africa Twin in a party dress. A fantastic bike although it is, but it's basically an Africa Twin underneath. Is of not significant interest to me really at the moment. Going up from the engine, then we'll talk about the fuel tank and the fuel range. So as I was saying, I get slightly more now out of this than I used to. I now get 180, 185 is not completely unusual out of a full tank. I think that's a very reasonable range. Honda quote a 21 litre tank, you can get more than that in there. If you go above the filler neck, you can get 22. If you're really pushing it and you really want to go some distance, you can get nearly 23 in there if you're really on the very bottom of reserve. The fuel gauge on this, it goes down to a countdown when you come onto reserve, and then when you really are getting desperate, it just cuts the range off completely and goes down to effectively a little blank line, which means you've got around about a litre left in there, although there is more than that in there. So the fuel range is good. I would say it's reasonable for a big adventure bike. Colder weather, it actually does a tiny bit more on fuel range, more because you tend to be riding more gently than anything else. Whereas in the summer, if you're having a little bit of fun, you can get 140, 150, perhaps even lower if you're really enjoying yourself. Working back from the fuel tank then, if we come to the seat, dual seat obviously, then there we go, welcome back again. Sorry, got interrupted by someone wanted to use the road, no problem at all. So we were just talking about comfort, weren't we? And the dual seat on this is firm, but that's not a bad thing. If it's too soft, I don't find them very, very comfortable. And I've covered almost 1,000-mile days on this bike, and like any bike, I think it has a limit. Doesn't seem to make any difference how long you stop for. It just, as soon as you're back on the seat, it's uncomfortable again. So I think in the real world, you know, 800 miles, yeah, that's fine. Anything more than that, I think, is a push on any bike. And I wouldn't say the seat is particularly a bad feature of the bike. I'd say it was average. There's more comfortable out there, the Triumph Explorer particularly. And ironically, the S1000RR, and no one is more surprised than me about how comfortable that bike is, if I can get my words out. When you look at the S1000RR, you think, oh, that's really, really sporty, and how good it is on the track. Everyone says, I've never ridden one on the track. And how performant the bike is, you think, surely it can't be that comfortable. It is. It is miraculous how how BMW have done that. The reason why I said Honda is because I was thinking about the Fireblade, and the SP Fireblade is a good option. You can get them now for about 19,000, just over if you bargain really hard. The SP30th is 19,900, but you can get them around about 20,000 as well. So again, good value for the money. Bit different to this, I admit, but if I did that, what my thought process would be to effectively buy this outright and then start a new PCP on the Blade SP. So that's another option. Then get rid of my RR5. Slightly complicated, but it's an option Honda report, so I'm certainly looking at that one. Working back from the back seat then, if we talk about the luggage for a few minutes. So I have taken this away for some really long weekends actually. Me and my son went to Donington Park for the World Superbikes, and we had it loaded up with all the stuff a 9-year-old boy needs, plus all my stuff for a long weekend, a Friday, Saturday and a Sunday. Panniers are very capacious, we've got loads and loads in there. We took a bit more than we needed to, as always is the case, mainly because I wanted to see what it was like fully loaded up for 2 people for a whole weekend. Did rain a little bit, and the panniers actually remarkably seemed to remain watertight. And why they did that when they were full up and when they were empty they leak, I've got no idea. The stuff inside certainly didn't absorb anything, so that was really interesting, I thought, if you're a bit sad like me. The working back from the luggage, the rear end of the bike, the shaft it's still, to me, is one of the better shafts. I'm not going to say it's the best shaft, that's not true. It is a very, very good shaft, and the reason, again, going back to my highest rating video, it's got almost 35,000 views now. It seems to react worse when you adjust the suspension harder, which makes sense when you think about it. So when you have the suspension set on the softer side, the shaft seems to cope better, or more accurately, your perception of what the shaft is doing is reduced, because obviously there's less direct feedback. So I do wonder if the reason why people say the shaft on these isn't so fantastic is because they've got the suspension wound up. When it is set relatively comfortable, the shaft itself is fine. Now, going back to my last video, which didn't do very well, but anyway, about the results of the service from the year 3 service, that snatchy throttle hasn't yet recovered, and I'm a little disappointed with that, because I agree, again, the throttle is now very snatchy again. Whatever Crescent did when they did it at the year, I think it was the year 2 service, that sadly didn't hold at the year 3 service, and I showed you in that previous video all the resets that were done, all the values are all perfect. So I'm a little disappointed the snatchy throttle is back and doesn't seem to be showing any signs of going, unfortunately. I have heard, I spoke to someone very helpful via YouTube emails. If you want to leave any messages from you guys directly, feel free to use my email, it's in there. who actually said that he had better results running standard 95 unleaded rather than premium unleaded. I agree. It doesn't resolve it, it does reduce it. There is a difference there. So certainly if I was going to do a lot of town work or doing lots of stop-start work, I'd take that into account and probably put standard 95 in there, because it does seem to make a difference, which I think is quite interesting. So going back to the shaft and the rear end of the bike, the rear wheel remains unmarked other than mud today. The finish on the rear wheel is held up perfectly, the nuts are all perfect, the washers behind, or sort of washer part of the nut, if you want to call it that. There actually is no washers behind there, but the flat part of the nut at the back is also not a mark on it, although I do keep them clean. Always keep your nuts clean, everyone, it's really important. Spoke tensions remain really well. It's on its third back tyre now, 2 punctures and a wear. So in 14,000 miles, that's more bad luck than anything else. So I'd say about 5,500, 6,000 miles out the back tyre. That's pretty normal. And eventually getting back to the point of the video, I'm trying to sell my Crosstourer and I can't get rid of it. It's not saying that no one wants to buy it, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is I've tried, certainly up till where we are now in February 2024, I've ridden pretty much everything. And when I apply my logical head, I can't find anything better for what I use this bike for than what I've already got. I've got my R5 blade, as you know. There's going to be a lot more on that coming up soon now the final weather is here. And I use this basically as a Range Rover. It gets used for everything. You know, you put stuff in it, you take it away, and it doesn't really matter the weather. You go across a bit of bumpy road in it, you put people on the back of it. You don't really worry about keeping it immaculately clean. You just use it as an everyday bike. And yes, it's got its shortfalls, of which are very few, but it does have them. And when you actually apply those, you think, well, am I really going to gain anything? Going back to a video, a couple that I did just a couple of months ago, and for those reasons, I'm not really finding anything that offers me more than what I've already got for what I need. I am trying desperately to buy something really, you know, this is going to be the last bike I'm ever going to buy kind of thing, because I'm in that position now where money's not really the issue, luckily. And I'm not managing to buy anything because I can't find anything better taking into account what I want. Now, when I apply my illogical head about what I would like to buy, then we sort of come back to a very, very short list, and that short list is coming to the H2SX. Kawasaki have got an amazing deal at the moment where you get £3,000 deposit contribution, and I've played a couple of deals with Kawasaki where I either keep this and do a straight PCP deal for effectively £19,000, which is quite expensive. One where I chop this in and they give me sort of between £2,000 and £2,500 value for this, which gives you the maximum £6,000-ish deposit for the H2, which brings it quite affordable. The SE Performance one, effectively the trick with that would be, well, I'll put this in PX for that and basically get an SE Performance for the same price as a standard, which, yeah, okay, getting the value with that. I do need to ride the H2 SX, but dealers are a little bit reluctant to give those away at the moment. So I will try and find an accommodating dealer that wants to do something with those. So the shortlist, going back to what I was talking about before, Triumph Explorer 1200, probably the rally one with the big tank. I forget what it's called now, the Adventure or something. You get those 14.9 at the moment. I have even bargained a deal down with Solent Triumph. They would even come down more than that if the deal was right. So mid 14s for a Triumph 1200 Explorer, fully loaded with luggage and everything. every single option you can think of, just over 14 grand. That is very tempting, even though I'm not particularly a Triumph person. But that's a lot of bike for your money, and I don't think you can really get away from that. Unfortunately, 1250 GSA. I'll say unfortunately because I, like everyone else, tries to fight owning a GS, and I know certainly Vines in Guildford have just got a whole raft load of triple blacks, Adventure Sport, triple black GSAs, get it right in a minute, with everything, and I mean literally everything, and they're 19.5, so that's again very tempting. Again, going to the other extreme, SP Blade. Do you really need that on the road? Can I ride one of those well enough? Is that a bit selfish? Who knows? Again, that Ducati V4 is rearing its head. It's just too many options on the market, which is never a bad thing. So my sort of conclusion to this video, because we are going on for a little while now and not really saying too much, is that if I'm struggling to find something to replace this that difficult and can't coming up with a clear winner, that would lead me to think that this is probably the bike I need. It's still the bike I want, but what I'm saying is I don't want to be in that position where 10 years time you look back and say, well, in my early 40s I could have bought anything I wanted, but I didn't. It's a really tough decision. Over the 3.5 years I've had this, the only warning light I've ever seen is the fuel warning light, or the fuel warning blinking, not really actually a warning light as such, is it? It's been perfect. So guys, I kind of need your help on this one a little bit. Drop any thoughts you've got down there about anything I haven't thought of. I'm pretty comprehensive in my knowledge around bikes, I would like to think, but I'm more than happy to take any thoughts that you've got about something that's glaringly obvious. It's a difficult position to be in, almost. Yeah, drop any comments you've got, guys, and say, you know, Head Race, you've been a complete idiot. Why have you forgotten this? Have a look at one of those. Tell me what you think. I hope you've enjoyed this video anyway, guys, and drop any thoughts or comments or likes. We've got quite a good number of subscribers now. We're picking up quite nicely, so stay in contact. Thanks, then. Doesn't mean anything.